So, what does it take to build an entire city, literally from scratch, right in the middle of a forest? Today, we're jumping into the incredible story of how a group of founders turned a patch of Arkansas wilderness into a thriving town, and it was all thanks to one truly revolutionary idea. Can you believe it? The story of a future city, of a huge industrial complex, all started with this one simple piece of advice. A local judge pointing to a patch of empty woods that, up until that moment, was really only special to deer hunters. Seriously, this whole thing is a masterclass in strategic planning, pure ingenuity, and just sheer force of will. Let's get into it.
All right, so this entire venture didn't start with some fancy blueprint or business plan. Nope. It started with one man's nagging feeling that he was meant for something more than just shoveling sawdust all day.
And this is the man, Edgar Cap Gates. He was partially blind from a mining accident, but he was fiercely ambitious. It's 1898. He's working at his brother's mill, and he just feels his life slipping away. So he took a huge gamble, scraped together enough cash for an option on a massive tract of virgin pine timber, and set out to build an empire. Now, Cap was the visionary, for sure, but he was also smart enough to know he couldn't pull this off alone. He pitched his idea to a team of really experienced lumbermen and investors, including his own brother, and they immediately saw the potential. They formed the Crossett Lumber Company, and when it came time to pick a manager to run the whole show, Mr. Crossett just turned to Cap and said, "Well, how about you?" And just like that, Cap was in charge. Okay, so the company is formed, they've got the timber rights secured, and then they immediately hit their first huge roadblock. Where in the world are they actually going to build this thing? You'd think this would be a no-brainer, right? The nearby town of Hamburg was the logical choice. It already had a rail line, it had a community. But when Cap Gates made his offer, the town leaders just flat out rejected them. They were worried a giant new mill would bring in rowdy workers, that it would disrupt their local labor market by offering better wages, and that the company would just cut down all the trees and abandon the town. And this is a really crucial point. This wasn't some angry, knee-jerk reaction. This team was way too smart for that. Building their own town was always a very strong possibility, a contingency plan, because it gave them something you just can't buy: complete and total control. Hamburg's rejection was just the final push they needed to go with their other, very well-thought-out plan. So, the decision is made. They're going to build their own town. Now comes the really hard part. How do you build an entire city and an industrial complex in the middle of a swampy, isolated wilderness? The conditions they were working in back in 1901, they were just absurd. Constant rain turned the whole site into what Cap himself called a bottomless mire. We're talking heavy supply wagons sinking clear up to their hubs in mud. For an entire year, the whole workforce lived in this makeshift city of canvas tents, pitched right among the tree stumps. And this is where their pure genius really shines. Think about it. How do you build a massive wooden sawmill if you don't have any cut lumber? Well, it's simple. You first build a small, temporary groundhog mill. Its only job was to cut the timber they needed for the permanent mill, and the offices, and the first houses. They were literally building the town out of itself, one plank at a time. It's brilliant. Okay, the buildings are going up, but a town is more than just wood and nails, right? It needs a society, it needs a soul, and you can't just order one of those from a catalog. So how on earth did they forge a community from nothing? Their approach was just so incredibly pragmatic. Get this. Word gets out that someone's planning to open a saloon nearby. Cap Gates was determined to keep Crossett a dry town, so he does some digging and finds a law that prohibits bars near churches. The only problem? They didn't have a church. So he put a crew to work overnight, and by morning, a simple frame building was standing. The saloon license was denied, and that brand new church, it immediately became Crossett's very first school. Problem solved. And the society that grew up there, wow. It was populated by this incredible cast of peculiars. You had guys like Bully Neal, a foreman so tough he wore spurs with bells on them just so workers could hear him coming and scatter. And then there were legendary pranksters, like the machine shop foreman, Ben Sharkey. You just can't make this stuff up. An old-timer brings in a shotgun to be repaired, and as a joke, Sharkey welds a gas pipe to the barrel. So what does the old guy do? He storms the shop firing blanks, chasing Sharkey right out the other door. This was the kind of self-made entertainment that became the absolute lifeblood of the town. But all of this leads us to their greatest challenge, and honestly their most brilliant, game-changing solution. They had to solve the one problem that kills pretty much every single resource town: You have to understand, back then, the way the lumber industry worked was simple. It was called cut out and get out. The plan was to clear cut the entire forest in about 20 years or so, and then just pack up and abandon the town, leaving a barren landscape behind. That's just how it was done.
But then Cap started thinking, and he came up with this idea that was, well, it was totally revolutionary for the time. He thought, what if we treated timber not as a finite thing to be mined, but as a renewable crop, something you could farm forever? It was a complete shift from thinking in terms of 20 years to thinking in terms of always.
And that one single decision, the decision to stay permanently, it changed everything. It completely transformed their entire business model. Instead of just burning all the waste, they built paper mills and chemical plants to turn scraps and chips and small trees into brand new products. They learned, as they put it, to use every single part of the tree except for its shadow.
So, when you boil this incredible story all the way down, what's the big takeaway? It all comes down to one fundamental choice that separated them from nearly every other company of their time.
Ultimately, that's what it was. The decision to stop thinking about short-term extraction and to start investing in a permanent, sustainable future. That's what transforms a temporary work camp into a lasting community. It's the difference between just using a place up and actually building a place to last.